Rolling. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to The Scoop with Chris and Whitney. I'm Whitney Reed, National Sales Manager for BPI Sports.
And I am Chris McKenzie, Senior Vice President BPI Sports. And this is episode 6. So this is like mid-season on a sitcom where we're going to do the flashback episode to the previous ones. Only instead of real flashbacks, we're just going to kind of keep it quick and move through a bunch of things. But we do have some regular segments. We always do the fire drill with questions. We like to talk about something in the news, a freak of the week as we call it. We'd like to shout out some of our team BPI members, both as a professional, like coming up, and as a demo person of the week. So you'll have that. And there's a lot of news to cover this week. So that's really the agenda. Whit, I'm going to throw this one to you just for some thoughts. Tomorrow night, we're recording this on a Friday. Tomorrow night, there's some sort of a pay-per-view event, if I'm not mistaken.
I heard there was a fight coming up. I don't know.
It's 2 new kids.
Yeah, two guys no one ever heard of.
No, it's the biggest fight of our lifetime. Well, biggest fight in history. Mayweather versus McGregor. And whether you're a boxing fan or a UFC fan, they sold this fight. You couldn't help but to be pulled into this.
It's a moment of our popular culture.
Absolutely.
Could you remember, because I remember I was very young when Tyson and Lennox Lewis fighting in Miami with the infamous, Holyfield. With the infamous ear bite. I think that was one of the biggest fights in the century. Can you remember other things that compared to this level of?
Well, yeah, I would just say Tyson in general because
every Tyson fight was.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you'll remember, and I was young, and both of us kind of grew up watching Tyson. But back then, because there was a period where heavyweight boxing wasn't much of anything, and then Tyson comes onto the scene.
The littlest guy in heavyweight. And
all of a sudden, it was like this huge. Everything was a huge event that Tyson did, and you watch the pay-per-views, or if you watched on HBO or whatever it was. And Tyson would come out and just destroy people in 30 seconds. And nobody had ever seen anything like it.
Definitely a future freak of the week right there.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Well, here's how I would chime in is, Mayweather is a super boxer. I mean, some people think he's one of the best. His hand speed, super fast. I know Jay Cutler and him are friendly, and Jay is like mega impressed with him as an athlete. The Conor McGregor piece, I mean, it's pretty interesting because MMA is so on the upswing. And boxing is on the downswing. So these two guys will kind of like help each other's careers. And funny thing is they really do seem to dislike one another, but their legacies will be eternally tied together to one another. So that's interesting. Down here in South Florida, we have a facility called American Top Team, and a lot of top MMA guys. I mean, top fight out of there, including I think Amanda Nunes, the current women's champion, Robbie Lawler. It's like 5 miles from my house, and my daughter takes like kids wrestling classes there.
Yeah.
From another amazing athlete, Steve Mako is his name. He's the wrestling instructor. But one thing I love about MMA that I don't love as much about boxing is the accessibility of the superstars. So to that extent, I'm rooting for McGregor. I always like guys that seem like regular guys, but he kind of seems like an asshole too. Well, so, you're torn. Well, I mean,
You need to sell fights.
Hey, look, I've never rooted for Mayweather in any of his fights, but I'm rooting for him in this fight. I just don't like Conor McGregor. I don't know. But it is crazy to think about 10, 12 years ago how ESPN wouldn't even acknowledge UFC as a real sanctioned event. I mean, this was kind of an underground thing, and now it's turned into where you have the biggest star from the UFC fighting the biggest name in boxing history, and both of these guys know how to sell a show. So this is going to be, this is going to be the biggest fight, like I said.
Well, and the MMA factor of it, you have to think about how the evolution of every sport goes. Back in the day, who was fighting? I mean, it was kind of freak shows, no holds bar,
yeah, it was
bare hands. Now these children at 12 years old, can now train to become. Now you're seeing these young crop of fighters.
Yeah, like it's a real discipline.
Exactly. So now it's serious. There's rules. There's certain elbow striking rules.
I remember having my first VHS tape of UFC. I don't know if it was 1, 2, or 3. It was one of the first, and Royce Gracie won. And you had to fight multiple times during the night to win the tournament. And I remember them carrying Gracie out for his last match, like his family, carrying him out to the
Well, it has changed a lot because the jiu-jitsu guys, and then we're going to have to get off this, but the jiu-jitsu guys kind of ruled it in the early days. It was grappling and on the ground.
Nobody knew what they were doing.
But it really has switched to a lot more striking and kicking in recent days. And the one final point is, I think, Dennis, you might have even said it, or I was talking to my good friend Kevin Malaberti about it. He said the same thing. What would happen if they reversed the roles and Mayweather had to fight McGregor in an MMA match?
It'd be over in 30 seconds.
That would be an interesting...
It wouldn't even be interesting.
Yeah,
I know one thing that would happen. Their payday would double.
I mean,
that would be the biggest fight.
I mean,
of all
that's
time.
the world tour right there. You know, you come to my playground and I go to yours, and then we decide who really wins.
But hold on, one more thing. I just want to talk about Mayweather's training coming up into the fight in this week. I don't know if anybody saw on the. I know ESPN talked about it, and a couple other channels did as well. But Mayweather has been training hard at his strip club every night this week, staying there till 3 a.m.
That's an illusion. Now, let me tell you about that. And this is the last thing. We're moving on to some bigger news. But Mayweather does that on purpose because in the morning he runs all the way from the strip to his gym, which is 4 or 5 miles away, and he trains at 4 o'clock in the morning. So
that's like his warm up.
He doesn't drink. You know, the guy never drinks, never do drugs or anything. He starts his day at like probably midnight, goes, handles his money, and then it's already to the training thing.
I know one other thing he's doing. I think Chris and I are going to get tickets. I think it's $20,000 a head for seats in the strip club after the fight. So Chris and I.
I will totally be there.
We'll be there.
Any other news going on, Chris?
Well, listen, I want to dial it in for a second on some sad stuff, and I do not want to dwell too long on this. But this week we saw 2 people in the industry on the athlete side pass away, Dallas McCarver and Rich Piana. I think I may be the first person in bodybuilding history to not have a picture with Dallas McCarver. That's the one thing I learned, and maybe they say it's too early. I'm just trying to be a little lighthearted in it. But everybody's seen him put up a picture with him. I never met him. I mean, he seemed like a great guy. I know he works with a good friend of ours over there in a different brand, and brought tears to my friend Aaron's eyes. Rich Piana, you don't want to see anyone pass away. I mean, I didn't really love the element that he brought to the sport, and I thought... it came with some risks, and I think a lot of those risks bit him in the butt personally. But at the same time, his brand did kind of excite or invigorate a segment of our market that was being underserved and brought consumers in. So always sad news.
Yeah, I'd met both of them before, but I didn't. I wasn't a personal friend of either one, but just sad news. Hate to see that kind of stuff happen in our industry.
Yeah, and I don't think either Whitney or I want to go really too in depth about it, but considering it just happened and we're on mic, it would be a mistake not to mention. But always sad when someone passes, and especially young people. I think that Dallas was only 26, so we should all remember how quick life can go, and let's get out of that because it's starting to get sad.
Let's line things up a little bit. I'm joining you guys today as your host for the fire drill. So I want both of you guys to do the fire sounds.
It's the fire drill.
All right, guys, let's kick it off.
We got a lot of questions, so we're going to move quick on the fire.
We're going to go quickly. All right, first question. These are all from our fans. Thank you guys for submitting them. You can do that. You can email Chris at...
Yeah, you got to hit Dennis up. DENIZ at BPIsports.net.
None of us are going to read it.
And Dennis doesn't read emails, but if you have a really good one, send it in, and... let's get going.
All right.
Tag us in some freaky stuff on Instagram, too. I'd love to shout that out.
Yeah, and also we just started up The Scoop Instagram page that will be just putting up funny pictures. So follow us at _Scoop_podcast. All right, let's get started. All right, Chris, hey, I'm a beginner. How many days a week should I work out, and what balance between weights and cardio? How many sets and how many reps of
All right,
and how
this
many
is the fire
body
drill,
parts?
so you can get some quick questions. Even just 3 days a week of weightlifting on someone who doesn't train will make a huge difference. Cardio is a great way to lose weight, so if you're beginning from a higher body fat percentage, maybe on top of those 3 days in the gym, you do 2 days of cardio. And I'm going to be honest, sets and reps, define what heavy is. I mean, when you're new, you don't really know how far you could push it, but the same shit that makes Whitney look magazine cover ready is the same shit that's going to help a beginner look his best. So don't be scared to get under that 8 rep, 6 rep range. And the key is go till you can't go anymore. That's, find the wall and push to it. And the truth is the wall moves further away the more fit you get. So go hard, don't be a pussy, do your cardio, whether you're super advanced or a novice, and you will get better.
So, Whitney, I know we're not doctors here, but somebody had a question you might be able to answer. He had a shoulder injury. How should he approach bench pressing? Should he even approach bench pressing?
Good question. I have had several shoulder injuries. The way I look at it is this: if you're using a bar for your flat bench press, you are at risk of some type of shoulder injury. It's kind of an unnatural position. In every time that, personally for me, every time that I've gone up heavy, let's say I give myself 6 weeks to train heavy with a flat bench using the bar, at some point I'll tweak my shoulder. I rarely have issues like that if I'm using dumbbells. The range of motion is a little bit different. You can kind of control where you're holding the weight. So I wouldn't avoid the bench press completely, but if you are feeling a tweak in the shoulder, try some dumbbells, try some different exercises than the flat bench bar.
Cool. Chris, this might be for you. Are supplements good for me, or are they a waste of money?
I mean, supplements are a great part of your strategy to get more fit. They're not the first part. The first part is getting up off the couch and starting to exercise. So if you're just going to take a bunch of like pills from a retail store or online and think your shit's going to change,
that is a waste of money.
But once you get rolling, you hit plateaus. Like Whitney said, you get that bench going. You want to get a little stronger. Creatine, protein. I mean, if you're looking to lose weight, diet pills, micro ingredients like CLA, carnitine, right down the line, branched chain amino acids. Awesome ways to enhance your eating and your training.
Buddy Darius wants to know, it's kind of an open question, do I need a lifting belt?
Do you need or do you want a lifting belt? I've used a belt for years, and the way I look at it is, if I'm gonna squat or deadlift heavy, yes, I use the belt, but I don't use it as a crutch. Right? You see a lot of people that just wear their gym belt around the gym, just doing whatever exercise they're doing.
I used to wear mine around like school when I was in high school.
It's a cool accessory.
It was awesome back then.
So yeah, I do recommend if you are going extremely heavy, or like Chris said earlier, heavy is just whatever heavy is for you. It's definitely a good idea to use a belt, but don't use it as a crutch. Don't use it the entire time you're training.
Cool. Chris, what do you do personally to get enough water into your system? That's all we see these guys walking around with these gallon jugs.
Well, listen, there's really 2 tricks. So Whitney mentioned the other day he drinks at least a gallon a day, and I mean, I say I try to drink at least a gallon a day, not even counting when I'm in the gym, because there was one time when I was training, I drank my entire gallon during my workout. So you want to drink that much fluid, not counting your training time. And when you're training, you're thirsty as hell anyway, so it's easy to drink. So what do you do during the day? Number 1 is always have the fluid handy. Have a bottle or a cup on your desk. And, you might not want to be that guy with a gallon on you, but always have a bottle of water, always keep it full, and always be sipping it. Number 2 is, I don't know if it's a strategy, but I always flavor my water. I put some BCAAs in it, or, I used to use Crystal Light a lot, but I don't like the sweetener that Crystal Light uses, so I kind of moved out of that. But, throw something in there, drink it up, and it goes down pretty easy.
We have like 100 flavors of BCAAs, so you have
lots of opportunity.
With the same on that same note, people sometimes question how much they should eat, and it's hard for them to eat. I heard I should eat several meals a day, someone asked. What do you think, Whitney?
What do you mean by several? So this is a tricky question, and I know there's 2 completely different processes that people use to get in shape.
Personally for you, what's your kind of method of how you eat for your goals?
I get 5 meals in a day, 5 solid meals in a day. And I'm not saying that this is the only way to stay in shape or get lean. It all has to do with your macros and where your food's coming from. They can be spread out throughout 5 meals through the day like I do. It's easier for me, but I know some people do like to have 2 larger meals throughout the day. I've personally never done that, but I have seen people get results from doing that. I know Chris has a different opinion on that.
Well, I'm going to chime in here. Maybe we won't get to all these questions because we're getting not at fire drill pace, so we need to amend ourselves. But here's what I would say. In the old days, you ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and maybe a snack at night. Then someone got smart enough to say that isn't really healthy. And the meathead community really quickly went to like several small meals a day. This was when I was in my early 20s. So this is like 1995 technology. But the multiple meals a day thing, and you're trying to hit your macros based on grams of protein, trying to eat about 40 grams, 50 grams of protein with the meal, it actually worked, and everyone got in shape. And that was kind of accepted in the popular bro culture for at least 15 years. Now you get to like 2010, and then everybody starts saying intermittent fasting, if it fits your macros, this, that. And the truth is, some of those other diets might have some validity. But the one point I would come back to is, if there's a consistent litmus test of success across all the peripheral diet strategies, and that strategy is eating, 5, 6, 7 small meals a day, depending on how often you work out and how long you're awake during the day. That's where I would hang my hat. And if you can break up your macros properly with enough protein to carb to fat ratio, which I'm not even going down that road, that's the diet that worked for me. I mean, listen, I'm like 700 years old and you can still see my abs. So if the proof is in the pudding, I would eat that pudding.
Yes, agreed.
So here's a little bit more of an advanced question. This is kind of a guy that's been working out for a while and he has certain lagging body parts. How would you focus on those certain lagging body parts so it kind of catches up to the rest of you?
How would you focus on them?
Well, what would you do differently to bring those? Let's say you have some.
How many times a week are you training that lagging body part at this time?
First question he has to ask himself: are you training it enough?
Right. So
are you overtraining it?
Yes, correct. So if you're hitting it one, let's just say it's your shoulders, whatever. Because for me, I always wanted to bring up my rear delts. I wasn't really focusing on my rear delts. I was doing a motion that was supposed to be for my rear delt, but once I really looked at it, it was actually working more trap than it was rear delt. So I had to actually get that mind-muscle connection going, training it twice a week instead of once. And if you're looking for overall size in certain areas, kind of time your food around those. Let's get a bigger meal in, on the day that you're going to train that lagging body part.
A little extra push on that day. I would just say find a couple different exercises. Like if you're bench pressing 6 times a week and saying my chest isn't getting bigger, then do something different than bench press. Try an incline, try some dumbbells. That would be step 1.
Hey, look, I had a guy that used to tell me when I was training when I was younger, he was a really big dude and he was extremely strong. He told me that I wasn't strong because I could hit 405 on a Monday. He told me that you could only be you were only considered strong if you could come into the gym every day of the week and hit 405. So, yeah, different strategy.
Chris, might be up your alley a little bit.
Yeah.
As you get closer into a show, how would your nutrition and training change?
I'm going to give you an honest answer, Dennis. I'm not even going to answer that one today. That is too long a conversation, and I would encourage people, if you do have any competition-related questions, I competed myself, but maybe we can get one of the guys here, like our friend Raleigh or somebody, or Kevin, who's a real diet guru. I'd love to take a bunch of those at once. Again, DENIZ at BPIsports.net. We'll have a sidebar podcast one day about contest prep.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting.
Well, here's another one up your wheel then.
All
We'll
right.
skip that one. Is it counterproductive to deadlift? Is it counterproductive to deadlift and squat on the same day?
My answer is yes. However, a lot of powerlifting people, because the meets are, you do it all at once, they'll do their bench, squats, and deads on the same day. But to me, that's way too much hip, spinal erector. I mean, it's way too much engagement and overstim, and you're just going to go home beat up.
Talking more about squats, is the front squat a good alternative to a regular squat?
I don't know about alternative, but it's going to work a different muscle group, and it's extremely challenging to do a front squat. If you're used to the traditional back squat, working more of your glutes and your hamstring, and then you try a front squat, and you have never done it before, you'll probably fall over. So if you want to focus more on your quads as opposed to glutes and hams, try the front squat.
I'm going to give you an answer. You ready? There is no alternative to a squat. Be like looking at a car and saying, is there an alternative to that tire? You still need a tire. You can make some finesse and get a bigger tire, whatever, but with that said, the front squat is a totally different exercise. And the one thing, we went through a heavy front squatting period in our life. The way that shit makes your abs feel.
Your abs, yeah.
Dude, I was blown away.
Yeah, that's the best core exercise.
Yeah, because I never did a front squat, and then I decided to get into it. And man, my abs were beat to hell. Enough fire drill questions. I want to get to the freak of the week.
All right, let's do it.
All right, I've had enough.
Freak of the week.
Neil Smith is the answer.
Yeah, Neil Smith. NFL Hall of Famer, I think 6-time Pro Bowler, absolute freak. If you guys remember him, played for I think the Broncos at the end of his career, was it? But he was drafted by Kansas City.
I believe he went to the Super Bowl with the Broncos.
Yeah, won 2 Super Bowls with the Broncos. He led the NFL in sacks one year. I mean, the guy was a complete stud. He was like a 300-pound defensive lineman or something like that. But
first show that we had, someone asked what we think is the most athletic position on a football team, and we both said almost at the same moment. Defensive end.
D-end, absolutely.
So
and
here comes this motherfucker.
Chris, give your analogy on why this guy's the freak of the week.
Okay, yeah. So we had a brief rehearsal on this one. So check it out. In last week's episode, we talked about pro wrestlers, and I think one of our guests, maybe it was James or Reagan, said, what got you into bodybuilding? And he said, I saw either a WWF guy or a comic book character, and their physique had this kind of like impression that it could do more. It was like overly capable. You thought they were a superhero. Well, what makes Neil Smith topical this week is this guy who's 6'4", I'm assuming he's still a monster because he was when he played. He just pulled a 9-month pregnant woman out of a flooded car through raging waters in an unexpected flash flood. What I really want to give the respect here is, you know, it's one thing to just be born genetically cool and you're big and you can play football, but when you use like those extra strength gifts and your height or whatever it is to actually save someone's life, you actually are a superhero. And I think that's so cool. And I was reading up about it in preparation for here. And what he said, and I don't know him, so maybe he's a jerk in person, but at least he said, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I did what anyone else would have done. I mean, that's humble, awesome. Yeah. Honest, I was touched by it, and that's kind of what got him onto our radar for the Freak of the Week nomination. So
yeah, it's a really cool story.
Doing a little bit more research, I learned he also battled with childhood dyslexia, which is an issue that I myself have dealt with, and it's very touching, and apparently the guy's got a great life. And
how many people have you saved with childhood dyslexia? Okay.
My brother saved me once.
Did he? Yeah. Wow.
I jumped into the old Pontiac 6000. You remember those?
I remember that car.
Yeah, it was a stick shift.
And he said, don't drive that car. And you said, thank you.
I was probably 3, put it in neutral, go rolling down the hill. He comes running down, jumps in, pulls up the parking brake, saved me at the bottom of the hill.
If you were 3, he was 7.
He was 7.
Wow.
And my brother is a superhero, all right?
That's pretty awesome.
He's always been my hero, so yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of superheroes, our Athlete of the Week, Whit.
Athlete of the Week, interviewed him last week, Jose Raymond, IFBB Pro, one of the greatest bodybuilders of our generation and of all time, and in preparation for the Olympia right now. And we just talked to him last week about his training, his prep. He looks awesome. I don't know, has he? Well, yeah, he's leaked pictures out because it's on his IG.
It's on ours. It's on our podcast.
Yeah,
and you can watch his full thing on YouTube. He's doing an excellent job of documenting his road to the Olympia. I mean, this year, dude, he's coming.
Yeah, he looks great. Is his YouTube just Jose Raymond?
Yep.
Yeah, so go check that out. It's a bunch of good stuff on his YouTube page.
Hey, I got one more Freak of the Week I want to throw out there. It's a friend, so I'm kind of... But
friendly Freak of the Week.
Back in the old days, my buddy Tim, I mentioned him before, an IFBB pro, him and Jose competed a lot, like the Team Universe level and stuff. And if you guys want to tag us on some amazing lifts, I don't mind shouting them out. Tim happened to tag me, you know those trap bars that you have?
Yeah.
Tim did a set, it looks like 6 or 8 rows with the trap bar at 420 pounds loaded on there. Oh so we didn't hook up with O'Hearn for an O'Hearnology today. So I'm going to let Tim slip into that O'Hearnology point. And I guess the tip is train your fucking back hard or else you suck. Because looking at this video, I mean, this is more than I could do. And there's maybe 1 or 2 lifts I can get Tim on. Most of them he does get me on. But man, when I saw this, I was like, I got to go home and start doing some heavy rows because it put it on perspective.
Yeah, you've told me some crazy stories about Tim over the years.
Yeah, this kid's a beast. So Pro Tim, really easy. That's his Instagram name.
Going from one of our freakiest people to one of our more prettier, more beautiful people on our team. We have our demo, not our demo, but our ambassador of the week.
Ambassador of the week.
The beautiful Crystal Suarez. She just kind of joined the team not too long ago. Check her out on @Miss_Suarez with 2 Z's. But super cool, awesome Instagram page. She's out of Santa Maria, California. And yeah, just awesome content. She's been providing us with some great videos and training tips. And she actually knows what our supplements do, which is kind of rare sometimes. Yeah. People take our stuff and kind of don't understand it, but she's actually giving you great information. So make sure you go check her out. And on that same note, I'm also going to tell you guys about our huge buy more, save more deals. You've seen it everywhere on our Instagram page, YouTube, Facebook. If you go on our Instagram page right now at BPI Sports, you'll see the link at the top. So there's just a tier system of sales. The more you buy, the more you save. I mean, it's probably the biggest deal we've had. At $120, I think you can save up to $50.
And that's on our website.
That's on our website at bpisports.com. We also have, I think we have an incredible deal at Vitamin Shop too, or something.
Yeah, we've got some good deals going on in Vitamin Shop as always. And then one of my favorite products is launching there next week. The best BCA with energy. All 3 flavors will be on shelf either next week or in maybe about 10 days or so. So if you've seen those ads, we've been pushing those ads for the past month and a half, whatever. It will finally be on shelf there, so go check that out.
So check it. We got the big fight this weekend. We can recap that next week. We do have some exciting news coming from some of our BPI athletes as we prep for the Olympia. And Whitney and I also want to talk a little bodybuilding shop, talk about the Olympia. And I also am interested in hearing from people, where do you see the future of I'm going to say bodybuilding in quotes, When do you guys think men's physique will be the headliner at Olympia and not bodybuilding?
Wow.
Or will it ever be?
Or do you
I have my own theory, and I want to get into it sometime, but we're going to hold.
You're going to leave us hanging like that?
Or do you think that the classic physique is going to actually take over? Because you see a lot of these men's physique guys.
Hey, hold it down for next week.
I am so ready to talk about that. We may even need to set up a call-in number. And get, you know who else passed away this week? Jerry Lewis. We didn't mention that.
Yeah, Jerry Lewis. He was one of the funniest guys of all time.
And Dick Gregory.
And, you know, I had a cousin who had really bad, like, muscular dystrophy. And I think Jerry Lewis actually met him once after the telethon and, like, did some stuff for the family, which I was really touched. So I'm remiss in not mentioning his passing and the fact that he used his fame for really something pretty awesome. So that,
dude, he was hilarious. What a sucky week, man.
Yeah, really.
Downer.
All right, well,
guys.
Let's end it there.
Wrap it up.
Kind of sucks. All right, in closing, thank you for tuning in every Wednesday on iTunes. You can find us. You can also find the entire podcast for free on the BPI Sports YouTube channel, which is BPI, or on bpisports.com. So until next week, remember our tagline, especially new guys, don't be a pussy.